So today on HeiseSays, we have special guest, Adrian, CEO of Independent Reserve, one of Australia's oldest crypto exchanges, and an old friend of the channel. Welcome back, Adrian. Thanks for joining us. How you been?
It's my pleasure. Very well.
How's Sydney treating you?
It's very quiet here. There's definitely a lot less people on the streets than there were last week. It's a little bit eerie, actually.
So the commute into work is like 5 minutes, you're just going in, nice, relaxed, or you're sleeping under your desk?
I'm lucky enough that I can walk to work, and I guess most of our staff can get to work without having to use any transport, so that's good. But we're also looking at working from home and I guess implementing all the things that everyone else is doing right now.
So
it's crazy times.
Well, if people are watching this in the future, we're in the midst of, an illness pandemic, and as New South Wales is probably one of the hottest states in Australia that's copped it, and a lot of people are terrified. They're rushing and buying bulk toilet paper. They're just going crazy, and a lot of businesses are cutting back. I think what Ernst & Young sent 6,000 people home. Telstra 20,000 working from home. So I tell you, I predict there's going to be a baby boom, mate. I reckon all these people working at home. We're going to have, in 9 months' time, we're going to have a mini baby boom. You get home, you're watching Netflix. Like you told me you bought a whole lot of wine.
Corona generation.
That's it. I can see a benefit coming from this, There's going to be a whole bunch of new, fresh kids that we need to help the population growth. Or a shitload of divorces, because people spend time together.
Maybe both. Let's see how we go.
That's it. So, the last few days have been pretty hectic with the crypto. I did a live stream last night. We were all watching the New York Stock Exchange just to see what would happen when it opened, and it's bleeding. It's red, and now it looks like Australia's going to have QE on Thursday. Printing more money out there. So I've been watching the crypto, and it's taken a bit of a pounding, particularly Bitcoin over since. If you had bought in at the beginning of the month to now, you've copped it. So what do you think that has to say with the argument that it's a non-correlated asset or a bit of a safe haven, because it's taken a hit like everything else?
Look, I think right now all correlations are kind of out the window. So we're in a liquidity crisis. So any liquid asset is going to be sold right now, and this is what we're seeing. So people just want cash. They want to flee to whatever they perceive to be some kind of safety, so they're going into bonds, they're just holding cash. So anything liquid is going to be impacted. And yes, we've seen a huge drop in the price over the last week. I think it's dropped from about 15,000 AUD about 2 weeks ago to about 8 now, or whatever it is. So it's been around, but I guess it's been very similar to what's happened in pretty much every other market. I think even the price of gold is down about 10% over the last week. So nothing's really immune from this. So I think we're just going to ride out this storm and then wait and see what happens.
Well, that's an interesting thing that, gold and silver took a hit, and then people are saying in the comments, but I can't buy any silver at the local supplier. They're all out. I can't get any bars. So you got the paper world where it's all bleeding red, and then you got all the people wanting to actually buy some physical stuff to hold in their hands, struggling to find any. So it seems to be this disconnect.
I think there's a lot of irrational behavior happening right now, and you just have to walk into any supermarket to kind of appreciate it. I don't think there's anything that's immune from the irrational fear that we're seeing in all markets, not just the financial markets, but supermarkets. It's pretty incredible. I've never seen anything like this in my life. Yeah, well,
I think this is a first for Australia. A lot of people are shocked, really, and particularly the oldies. They're coming up there, and there's nothing there. We're lucky. We're these nutters that buy like cows, one whole cow at a time. So I've got so much meat at home. It's crazy. It's the only way to do it. People think you're a crazy pepper.
Where do you live?
We just live in the middle of Brisbane.
Address? I might.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure. I'll trade you 1 kilo.
In a couple of weeks.
1 kilo for 1 Bitcoin, mate. Or you bring your wine. Your 50 bottles of wine you got. You bring some of that. We'll make a good barter trade.
Back to the barter system.
That's it. It'll go. What is it? Tobacco and Mad Max and petrol.
Toilet paper.
Toilet paper. Like I said, that's just people's diet, mate. You don't need bloody pallet load of shit paper. I don't care what you're saying. That's just seriously. You see the guy on the side of the street? He was selling it by the back of the ute. He had a pallet there, $50 a roll.
Yeah, so there's a black market now for toilet paper. I mean, who would have thought, right?
Oh,
economics will do its thing. If the product's not available on the shelves, someone else will try and make a profit on it.
So what you're saying is the government needs to institute a cash ban on toilet paper to limit the amount that people can trade, because it's going to...
Look, if this continues, I think the natural progression is the government will introduce some kind of a token that you have to have with you if you want to buy one of these goods. I mean, this has happened in other countries in the past. I guess when there was a shortage of a thing that people needed, the government would start to ration it. Look, I hope it doesn't happen here. It'd be crazy if it did, but let's wait and see what happens next week.
I'm confident it'll all calm down eventually, and people will feel pretty stupid having a garage full of toilet paper they'll never use in their lifetime.
Well, they'll use it eventually. I guess this is why people are buying it, right?
Yeah.
It won't expire.
You're right. You're right here. So how's the volume on your exchange at the moment? Have you seen more people are flooding in and more movement, or is it about the same?
I think from our point of view, we've probably had the highest volumes we've had in about 12 to 18 months. We've probably also had the highest amount of new users looking to open up an account. So I guess we're seeing, like huge demands, huge volumes. Even though the price is dropping, it still seems like there's a lot of interest in this space right now. I think people are really, kind of beginning to see that Bitcoin is a hard asset. It's something that can't be inflated by a government. Like we're seeing quantitative easings right, left, and center right now. Interest rates dropping to zero. Government's printing money. I mean, the governments are pretty much out of options now. It's like, well, we've dropped interest rates to zero. What do we do next? So people are going to start looking for hard assets like gold, like Bitcoin. I guess the gold rush will probably happen a little bit quicker than the Bitcoin rush, but ultimately rationality will kind of prevail and people will look for something that can't be inflated. And I think that's what we're going to see in the next few months in Bitcoin.
Oh, we'll have to keep an eye on it, but I think there's definitely people that are aware of it now as opposed to in the past. So they'll probably there'll be people keeping an eye on it, going, okay, I might chuck a little bit in there just to watch it how you go and see what happens. And part of the reason why we wanted to organise this interview was to discuss the halving that's occurring in Bitcoin. And I've got, hang on, I'll bring this up here. I've got this chart here to show and to try and explain it to people, because it's an unusual concept that because for people who don't understand, but back in the day anyone could mine Bitcoin on their computer, and the computer would perform calculations, and you'd get a reward if you discovered a block. And we can see here, back in, what was it, in reward era 1, and from block 0, what was it, your blocks started there, and then you got a reward per block was 50 Bitcoin per block, per every single block. Yep. So what is that, $8,000 per 50? That's not too bad for finding one block. Damn, I wouldn't mind that. And during that initial era, 50% of all the Bitcoin was mined, because Bitcoin's capped. It's not going to be producing forever. Not like some of these altcoins or these coins that have, you get these people that say, oh, my altcoin is going to be worth billions of dollars or millions of dollars each, and you go, well, to achieve that means with the current number of tokens you have, it would have to be worth more than the entire world's economy. So some people are just, not really thinking it through. Not really thinking it through. So what reward cycle era are we now? Are we number 3, or how many
so
BTC?
Right now, the reward is 12.5.
Okay, so we're here.
Block that's mined, that's the reward to the miner, and that's about to drop to 6 1/4. So that's going to happen, I think right now, projected to happen on the 12th of May. So in a month and a bit. So there's been 2 halving events already in the past. They usually happen every 4 years or thereabouts. And I guess every time this has occurred, the supply of new Bitcoin being issued onto the market halves. And usually that coincides with a huge run-up in the price within about 6 to 12 months of the event. That's what's happened in the past. Whether it will happen this time, I don't know. I guess the market right now is very different to what it was last time. It's a lot more mature. There's a lot of instruments like options and futures. It's a very leveraged market now, which it wasn't last time. So the characteristics of the market itself aren't the same. So it may react differently. And I guess also right now we're, in the biggest liquidity crisis in history potentially. So who knows how that'll affect things in the short term. So it's very hard to make short-term predictions. But what we do know, no matter what the coronavirus does, the supply of new Bitcoin is going to halve in about a month and a bit. So that's a known certainty.
The amount generated. And there's also, there's a lot of wallets where it's locked up as well. That it hasn't been moved, or people may have lost the keys.
That's right.
So it's just sitting there. And so now the more that's coming on is going to be, reduced. So, I mean, if we keep going down, we're going to the future. You can see the rewards that people are going to get for finding a block is just going to get lower and lower and lower and lower and lower. So why is he doing this? Why is it becoming less of a reward each time?
Why is he doing this? Yeah. So basically, the supply of Bitcoin is capped at 21 million, and that 21 is an asymptote. So it'll basically keep trying to approach that 21 million until it gets to within 8 decimal places of 21 million. So currently Bitcoin is divisible to 8 decimal places. Hence the last row in your table, it's 0.8 other zeros.
Yep.
And it's kind of modeled on the mining of a precious metal like a gold, right? So if we look at the gold example, say a few thousand years ago, gold was very easy to get, right? As in it was in the rivers, it was kind of on the surface of the mountains. It was very cheap to mine. And then once people kind of got the easy gold, it became, but there was still more gold, but it just became harder. All of a sudden you had to dig a hole, right? You couldn't just go to your local stream and start panning for gold because all the easy gold was already gone. So over time, it's becoming more and more expensive and harder to mine your gold. As in now you got to dig an even bigger hole, right? And you may dig a hole and maybe there's no gold. So now there's more and more risk. And, the investment required to produce new gold just keeps increasing over time. And ultimately, there's a certain amount of gold in the earth, and that's the amount of gold that was kind of produced when the earth was created, right? So there was a supernova explosion at some point, and it created all these heavy metals, and they're in the earth, and we just can't produce anymore, right? So ultimately, we'll run out of gold. No one knows exactly how much there is. There are estimates, but it's kind of modeled on the same concept, except it's much more predictable. There's an algorithm that tells you exactly, how much Bitcoin there will be in existence at any point in time in the future or any point in time in the past. So it's kind of like a very predictable gold mining model, I suppose you can think of it.
Mm-hmm. So they're trying to manage the process, but there'll come a day, and if we look here, there'll come a day where the rewards for mining or for discovering a block are going to be so small that will it even be worth doing it then anymore? Or will you be probably getting the transaction fees? Will that be where you'll be making your money at that point in time? Or we don't know what's going to happen in the future.
It's a good question. I mean, we don't know the answer because it hasn't happened yet. What we do know is that, I guess, every time a halving event happens, the inefficient miners, they drop off. As in, if your mining equipment and your electricity supply can't make you money at the reward of whatever it is now and the Bitcoin price of wherever it is now, you just will turn off your miners and you won't mine because you'll be losing money. As in, your electricity costs will cost you more than the reward you will make. So that's not necessarily a bad thing because we end up, with each halving, we end up with the miners that are left, they're the most efficient miners. So they're the ones that can get the best hardware. They're the ones that have the best electricity. They're the ones that are using renewables because maybe they can get the electricity almost for free. So the efficiency of the network kind of increases. It's kind of like the survival of the fittest in a way. We'll probably reach a point at some point in the future where the reward is so small that in order for miners to keep existing, either the price of Bitcoin has to be really high. So even though you might be being rewarded with like half a Bitcoin, if the Bitcoin's worth $100,000, well, the monetary reward is about the same as what it is now. Or as you said, maybe transaction fees will have to increase, right? So the other reward that the miners get, it's not just the block reward. They also get the sum of the transaction fees of all the transactions they include in the block. So right now, a transaction fee might be about 50 cents or so, but potentially this could go up. And it actually was a lot higher than this back in 2017. There was a time during the last Bitcoin bubble where in order the competition for a transaction to get into a block got really fierce, and you had to pay $20 or $30 for each transaction to be included. That may happen again, or maybe there'll be other solutions where, you know, there's layer 2 solutions that are kind of being built right now, which make it make it possible for more transactions to be included in the block. Or there's something called the Lightning Network, for example, which kind of sits on top of the Bitcoin network. So there's all these kinds of things. So the network itself is evolving. So the network that we have right now is unlikely to look as it does now in 20 years' time when this problem happens. So, yeah, that's a long way of saying I don't know. Lots of things may change, and they will change.
You're thinking that this model here will evolve to the point where what we're worried about, you know, will disappear. They'll find solutions. It's a slow-moving target. I mean, they got enough time to address it,
or it'll disappear. Like,
yep,
it'll be one of the two. I personally think it'll evolve.
Yep,
but I don't know. It hasn't happened yet.
Also, so we're hitting to the point, because, I mean, are there any people even mining still in Australia, other than hobbyists?
So there are Australian companies that are into mining. There's one that's actually looking at listing on the ASX in the next 12 months or so, although I don't know what their plans are now with the coronavirus. Mm-hmm. But they're not actually, their equipment isn't in Australia. So the electricity costs still seem a little bit too high in Australia. So their equipment is actually based in the US at the moment. But, you know, Australia's got huge potential for miners. I mean, imagine if you could put your miners in the outback and have some solar panels right next to them. I mean, there's all these kinds of solutions that people haven't explored yet. And as you know,
you could almost
as you need to be more efficient to be a miner, people will start looking at these things.
Well, you could almost, because I know some of the solar providers have problems maintaining regular supply to the grid, and it's causing a whole lot of issues. You can almost do the whole, all these guys were putting the shipping containers in there and putting in, and I mean, Envion just went into liquidation. That fell apart. But almost taking that idea to try and, okay, we'll mitigate your energy usage if you're going too high. We'll take it away from you for nothing. You know, we're doing you a favor. We'll only charge you $50,000 a month to help manage that, or something like that. So there could be an opportunity there to kind of help balance the power from those places, because it's, I mean, you look at it over the day, it's all over the place. A cloud goes over and you lose half your power, or you can get a spike and it causes issues. So I mean, where people are critical of all the energy that's used in this process, we can use it perhaps to a benefit, to burn off some of the excess energy we're producing rather than having hot water systems on forever. You know, that could be an opportunity there but people will still yell at you for it, though. You know, that's what they're like. They'll still get you at it. Evil Bitcoin's burning too much power. Just don't understand. Okay, so that's
if you're using renewables and off-peak times, it's hard to see how anyone can have an issue with it. But yes, I hear you.
Oh no, they'll find a way. Come on, mate, they'll find a way. People are really good at getting pissed off at stuff. Come on, that's a human skill. It's a human skill.
Then they'll go and buy some toilet paper.
Yeah, that's it. Well, no, after they bludgeon someone half to death to get it. That's the thing. That's what was it back in the old YouTube days? These people would have like bum fights, getting the bums fighting.
Oh, yes.
And I was talking to the girl at the Aldi, going, "Oh, so you're filming the people fighting? Anyone fighting there?" And she goes, "No, it's all boring. There's no fighting." Because you could trend on it, but
there's a business model there.
Oh, that's it. That's it. You know. But then they'd probably want royalties too, and there'd be all these problems and. Yeah.
There'll be lawyers involved before you know it.
Oh yeah, no, that's where all the money goes. We know that. That's the truth. No matter what happens, it'll be that. So you're thinking a couple of months or 3 months we'll hit this halving, and in the past, the price has spiked. One thing that's that I'm hearing around the place is that you've got a lot of crypto, a lot of Bitcoin being flooding onto the market, particularly from some of these these con wallets or these crypto wallets like Plus Token, or these things that have taken a whole lot of money, and it's starting to flood back on there, and that's disrupting the price. Do you think that's going to disappear? Are people getting more educated, or is it still being an issue with the sector?
Look, I think that'll diminish over time. So I guess because this is still quite a young asset, you do find that it's not really evenly spread out. So it can be concentrated in, I guess, a smaller amount of hands than maybe some other assets. And I guess any big whale is able to influence the market. But I guess every time a big whale puts their coins onto the market, whoever they may be, it will tend to get spread across multiple people, right? So I guess the more the holdings are decentralized and spread out, the less likely it is that any one holder can dump coins and move the market. So this will happen naturally over time, I believe.
You think it's more just as more and more people get involved in the sector and the wealth spreads, the whale effect will dissipate, hopefully.
100%, yeah.
Well, it really has to come to a point where more people start trading and using Bitcoin, because I think a lot of people buy it as an investment and hold on to it rather than exchanging it. I know I had a painter I was documenting an extension for, and you know, he was a crypto guy and he liked his Bitcoin. I said, mate, I'll give you a discount if you pay me in Bitcoin. You know, I'll give you 10% off. And he looked at me and go, no, I'll pay you cash. So he wanted to hold on to his Bitcoin and was happy to give it away the fiat. So I thought that was quite funny because we both wanted it for the same reasons. I offered him a deal, you know, offered him mates rates. Okay. I'd still have to pay GST on the bloody thing, but you know, there you go. That's it. So are we?
You actually probably wouldn't if you're using it for personal use. So there's an exemption. I mean, I'm not a tax advisor, but you should do some reading onto that. You probably wouldn't have to pay GST
if it was through my business.
Ask your accountant, but I don't think you would have.
Okay, oh, good. No, well, then maybe I'll shift everything to Bitcoin. There you just advertise that. Just advertise that, and you'll get usage up 100%. Then they'll catch on, and they'll nab you all. I mean, have you heard? Apparently, the ATO is sending out letters to people about their crypto holdings. Have you heard about that?
Yes, we have heard. I mean, so ATO actually made this public knowledge about 6 months ago or so. They approached all or most Australian exchanges, and they actually got a bunch of extracts of data. So if you've used any Australian exchange, you can assume that the ATO will know you've used it. So this wasn't a voluntary thing by the exchanges. This was something that they were compelled to do by the ATO.
So they forced all the exchanges to hand over the data. I mean,
for various bits of data. Yeah. So it's basically the same thing if you were to trade shares, you know, E-Trade or whatever. Like your trade information is going to go automatically to. So you know your trade information, your interest information that you've earned in an account, automatically gets input into the ATO, and I guess ATO are looking at this as just another asset class that people trade. So you should expect them to, I guess, have very similar levels of information.
So that's why when people go in and fill out their own taxes, it's already half done magically for them. How convenient!
Exactly. It's not magic; it's just the magic of data feeds, I suppose.
Well, yeah. I mean, they and this is why with the whole cash ban and all the issues there that's going on in Parliament. I'm so skeptical about it because so many people are moving away from cash. Everyone's just, we like the convenience of not using money. A lot of people, we're pretty lazy, tapping, doing this, but yeah. So it's definitely been an interesting time in crypto the last few days. We'll have to see how this month plays out. I mean, not just crypto; it's the entire market. It's been
the whole world. It's been an interesting time to be alive.
Well, yeah, it's history in the making. I think we're seeing falls similar to the Great Depression that just happened before there, and we'll have to see what goes on. If it jumps back up, I wonder if Australia will hit negative interest rates, or if it'll, if they'll go to 0.25 or go to 0. We'll have to see, Yeah. And I mean, and on top of that, you've got the Bitcoin halving. We'll see if that will have generate any excitement or any news out there with everything else going on, because there's going to be less supply there.
The interesting thing about the halving is, in a sea of uncertainty, this is the one thing that's actually very certain, and this will happen no matter what else, right? So that's why I do think it'll actually have a big effect on the market, because it's a certain event, and I guess people are looking for things to hang their hats on, kind of thing. As in, no one knows what's going to happen in any other market, right? But this is one market that has some level of certainty built in. So I see that as a good thing.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I think you're right there, because it's literally everything's going crazy right now. And they can say, oh, well, that's going to happen. I'll make a decision based on that and lock it in. Oh, fantastic. Well, thank you very much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. Is there anything else you'd like to add or share with the audience with regards to what's coming up? Or, how's it all going for your business there? Everyone's healthy and well, no problems?
Everyone's healthy and well. We've been very, very busy. As I said, we probably had our busiest week that we've had in the last 12 to 18 months. Lots of new users opening accounts, very high volumes on our exchange and I guess other exchanges around the world. It's a very busy time in crypto. Just want to advise everyone to, heed the advice of the government, do the right thing by everybody else, isolate yourselves when you need to. Ultimately, we're all in this together. So even though it'll be, I guess, a little bit of short-term pain, it will alleviate some potential big pain in the next few months ahead.
I think definitely some sensible advice there. For us and our family, I work from home, wife works from home, we homeschool, we buy our food in bulk, so it's not really making much of an issue to us. But, we're staying home extra. We're isolating, you're not going out there just in case. Probably because I live in the Asian part of Brisbane, so I see a lot of people walking around with masks everywhere. They're, all wary and a bit scared, and shops are all empty.
Yeah.
That's the thing that's gonna, I think, it's gonna hit a lot of businesses, the small businesses that depend on the retail foot traffic.
Yeah.
That's gonna really hurt a lot of people. And I'm pretty. It's pretty sad, actually, but well, that's how it is. Well, Adrian, thank you very much for joining me again for another interview. And
my pleasure.
I just realized I hadn't brought up your title card. Oops, I'll do it right now. There we go. We're polished operation here at HeiseSays. Oh yeah. There we. At least we got the audio this time. There you go. Thanks, mate. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
We'll have you on again. Take care.